In southeast Queensland, there is a growing community of landholders who are developing the knowledge and capacity to establish and manage native forest plantations on their land. These landholders are growing a renewable primary resource that will supplement Australia's increasing demand for wood products. They are also providing their regional communities with a range of ecosystem services and supporting a viable and meaningful regional economy. Most landholders see farm forestry as the only productive management alternative for land that is too small, weed-infested, steep or degraded for other forms of commercial agriculture. Successful farm forestry in the subtropics requires good planning and design, timely establishment processes, consistent maintenance, and a long-term commitment to the project. This short presentation will provide landholders with a basic understanding of the operational processes that are carried out during the establishment phase of a farm forestry development. That is, the site preparation, weed management, planting, and early maintenance activities. An understanding of these processes will help you to plan and design your farm forestry development. By the time you're ready to begin operations, you will have made a number of decisions critical to the future success of your plantation. These critical decisions include species selection, potential future markets for the products that you will grow, the management techniques that are needed to produce these products, the location and extent of your plantings and how it relates to the native vegetation in the landscape, the placement of infrastructure, and the hiring of contractors and ordering your planting stock from a reputable nursery. A map detailing your infrastructure and plantation area will become a valuable tool when managing contractors. It's your operational plan and should be flexible, adapting to unforeseen issues that may arise during operations. The first operational process that you will undertake is the on-ground marking out of your plantation rows and infrastructure. That is, the design and layout of your plantation in relation to access, boundaries, remnant vegetation and slope. You may need to remove weeds from the site before you can begin your mark-out. The design and layout of your plantation will be influenced by the method of cultivation that you employ. Cultivation is an essential step in the preparation of your site for planting. The objectives of plantation soil cultivation, commonly referred to as site preparation, are to create conditions that will enable the soil to catch and absorb as much rainfall as possible, to provide soil conditions that will facilitate fast root growth and good root development, and to make the process of planting as easy and efficient as possible. These objectives are achieved by employing a method of cultivation that aerates the soil, reduces the size of soil clods, removes subsurface impediments such as compaction layers, and allows both moisture penetration and retention in the lower soil profile. A spot ripper is a single ripping tine with wings mounted on an excavator boom. The spot ripper cultivates individual spots for each tree that will be planted, reaching a depth of approximately 600 to 800 millimeters below the surface. The spot ripper is just like a giant lawn aerator, allowing oxygen and moisture to penetrate the planting zone. The winged ripper penetrates the soil to depth and then exits at the same point, ensuring that the soil layers are not inverted or mixed. This maintains the soil structure and reduces moisture and nutrient loss. The soil layers are not inverted, so it's a little bit like no-dig gardening. Traditional forms of plantation cultivation involved a continuous rip line formed with a ripper on the back of a dozer or tractor. Continuous rip lines were established along the contour to prevent excessive erosion caused by surface water running along the rip line. Even when carried out on the contour, continuous rip lines act like dams, capturing water which will eventually break through the rip, causing erosion. The key to successful cultivation is to avoid controlling water wherever possible. Steep sites in the subtropics are not suited to contour planting. When tree rows are established along the contour on a steep site, you have to carry out all of your maintenance operations on side slope. It's extremely unsafe to operate tractors across side slopes. It also means that you have to place your rows further apart so that you don't damage your trees with the tractor as they grow. Steep slopes are impossible to manage safely and efficiently on the contour. Spot ripping does not direct water or cause erosion. The spot rip absorbs surface water and rainfall down into the soil profile. This allows you to run your rows directly up and down the slope, taking advantage of easier and safer maintenance, and allowing you to cover more difficult sites with plantation forest. On flat sites, where flooding or inundation occurs, you will need to consider a form of cultivation that improves the drainage conditions for your trees. Before you begin marking out your plantation design, it's helpful to slash your site. Slashing will uncover issues such as surface rock, changes in slope, and landforms that you may not have found on initial site surveys. Slashing will improve access and visibility for marking out. Slashing also helps to inform your row direction. Slash the site in the direction that's safest for the given slope. You can then use the slash residue as an indicator of the most appropriate direction for your rows. The recommended initial stocking rate for most commercial eucalypt species is 1,000 trees per hectare. This is achieved with 4 metre spacings between rows and 2.5 metre spacings along the row. As your forest develops, you'll need to reduce the density of trees in line with the capacity of your site and the products that you're growing. You need a high density of trees at the beginning to allow for natural attrition and beneficial competition between the trees. By manipulating the competition between trees at different stages of development, you're able to influence their shape and size, and therefore the type and quality of the products you produce. The plantation design is marked out so that individual rows can be sprayed with herbicide in preparation for cultivation. One method of marking out involves the use of bamboo stakes placed at 4 metre intervals in a control line that runs perpendicular to your row direction. The stakes represent the centre of each tree row. By establishing 2 control lines at an appropriate interval, you can sight through the corresponding bamboo stakes to mark the beginning and end of each row. Tractors are used to slash the interrow in the first few years of tree growth. Your markout must allow for a minimum of 7 metres at the end of the rows to allow a tractor to turn around into the next row. You will also need to consider the placement of bay rows. If maintaining your plantation with hose-based equipment, your row length will be limited by the length of your hose. Commercial spray units generally have 90 to 100 metre hoses. The spray unit or tractor is parked on a bay road or on the headland, and the hoses are used to access each row in turn for both planting and weed control spraying. Therefore, we generally try to limit the maximum row length to 90 metres, making sure that all of the plantation can be accessed efficiently for maintenance. On steep slopes, you may have to consider constructing cut and fill access tracks at both the top and bottom of the plantation. Access tracks may double as a fire break between commercial plantation areas and revegetation in the gully, or as a break between management units. The rows are then sprayed with a non-residual knockdown herbicide. The dead strips along the rows make cultivation more efficient and helps to reduce the size of soil clods. Between site preparation and planting, the interrow grass should be allowed to grow in order to provide a suitable residue for mulching your trees at planting. You may need to consider removing cattle from site or installing fencing. Woody weeds such as camphor laurel should be removed and treated before site preparation takes place. Camphor laurels can be cut using a chainsaw, their stumps treated, and the material can be pushed into a heap for disposal via burning. These activities should be timed to occur in readiness for cultivation. That way the excavator can be used to assist with pushing and bumping up the stacks. The excavator is also useful for the construction of access tracks, erosion repair and removal of site rubbish. The excavator cultivates 3 rows at a time, working up and down the slope. Efficiency is improved where the operator is able to follow the dead grass strips. The excavator operator judges the tree spacing along the row by eye, periodically checking his average spacing using a tape measure. Within 2 weeks before planting, the tree rows are sprayed with glyphosate, a non-residual herbicide, to a width of 1 metre. Timing of the spray is critical to the first few months of tree growth. This initial spray will kill any young weed germinates and provide the planted trees with a maximum period of establishment without weed competition and before post-plant spraying needs to be carried out. Once you've planted your trees, weed management becomes more time-consuming because you have to carefully avoid hitting the trees with herbicide. The first inter-row slash before planting should be timed to allow grass growth for mulching the planted trees. Generally, no slashing is carried out between the initial broadacre slash for design purposes and the pre-plant slash. The grass is slashed just prior to planting so that there is significant slash residue for placing around the base of the newly planted trees. The aim of the planting process is for initial high survival and fast establishment. There are many different methods and tools that can be used to plant a tree, but the fundamental principles are all the same. Use good quality hardened planting stock. Look after the trees whilst in transit and being stored on site. Provide water to the planting site in dry conditions. Provide maximum soil contact to the roots. Make sure that the tree is planted as straight as possible. Cover the top of the root system with soil and mulch around the base of the tree to suppress weed germination and conserve soil moisture. PFSQ's planting system has been developed to provide optimum conditions for tree survival and establishment. The system is labour-intensive during the planting stage, but saves significant costs in the long term by mitigating the risk of planting shock. This system also allows for flexibility in the timing of planting. Water is applied in the planting process, and so you're less reliant on rainfall and weather conditions. The planting site is prepared with aquaspheres, based on four-wheel drives with remote control spray units. The spray unit pumps pressurised water through a hose to the aquasphere, which is used to both dig and water the planting site at the same time. A consistent supply of water for planting is required throughout the planting phase and later on for spray maintenance. The water source should be close to the plantation site and accessible via Venturi system or with a firefighter pump and hose. Planting the trees is done by hand following the application of water, and no further water needs to be applied to the trees. Slashing the plantation interrows is one of the most important activities to take place in the plantation establishment and early maintenance phase. The plantation interrows provide access to the trees for spraying and pruning maintenance. If the interrow grass is not regularly managed, both pruning and spraying operations become difficult, slow and costly. Maintenance slashing should be timed to occur just before each spray maintenance activity. Access pruning is carried out in the first year to provide clear access beneath the tree for weed control spraying. The first access prune involves the removal of the very lowest branches. It's important to leave as much green material on the plant as possible so as not to affect tree growth at such an early stage of development. Weed control is essential to reduce the competition for water and nutrients between trees and weeds. As most hardwood species used in plantations have an open and narrow crown, there are substantial tree growth benefits by building to and maintaining a 2-metre wide, weed-free strip along each planting row for the first 2 years. In poorer quality sites, the length of time weed control needs to be performed may need to be extended due to the slower capture of the site by the forest. PFSQ spray the tree rows, 2 passes, one either side of the tree, approximately 4 times in the first year of establishment. Dribble bars, attached to spray units, allow for spraying in mildly windy conditions and reduce the amount of chemical that is used. When growing any timber product, the optimum tree shape is conical, like a Christmas tree. This shape is controlled largely by competition with surrounding trees for light. Trees that grow by themselves in the middle of a paddock often have large, rounded crowns. Trees that grow close to one another will send a single leader up towards the light. In some cases, eucalypt trees lose their optimum shape. Growing stresses, nutrient deficiency, insect attack and side light can cause eucalypts to establish double leaders, high angle branches or heavy side branches. Form pruning is corrective pruning, where one of the double leaders or high angle branches are removed. Form pruning increases the quality of the tree and concentrates growth in the strongest leader. Form pruning is carried out in the first 2 to 3 years when the leading branches are accessible from the ground. Lift pruning, form pruning and weed control will need to be carried out over the first 2 to 3 years of plantation establishment until effective canopy closure has been achieved. Canopy closure is achieved when the tree crowns have grown outwards to capture the maximum amount of solar radiation available on the site. At this stage, the grass cover beneath the plantation is shaded and starts to die back. When your plantation reaches this point, it's time to start thinning. Thinning is the selective removal of the poorer trees to create more space for the better ones as your forest develops. For more information about plantation establishment, contact PFSQ or take a look at our website.